You know, about a week ago, Donald Trump actually suffered a pretty crushing defeat because a handful of senators stood up and said that there was no way in hell that they would be voting for somebody like Ed Martin to serve as the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. And some people stood up and cheered. They said, yes, this was a win for sanity. And you know what? Those people weren't necessarily wrong. Ed Martin is a crazy person. He's somebody who rallied behind the January 6th insurrectionists, and he had no business serving as the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. But I held off. I bided my tongue because I realized that this was the Trump administration and that it was very likely that the next pick for U.S. attorney could be as crazy, if not crazier, than somebody like Ed Martin. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we got, everybody. You know her. You love her. It's Jeanine Pirro. And yes, guys, I am talking about that Jeanine Pirro, the crazy one from Fox News. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few of her greatest hits from over these past couple of years, because I just want to give everybody a reminder of just the type of person that we're actually dealing with here. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
If the devil called me and said he wanted to set up a meeting to give me opposition research on my opponent, I'd be on the first trolley to hell to get it.
There is a cleansing needed in our FBI and Department of Justice. It needs to be cleansed of individuals who should not just be fired, but who need to be taken out in handcuffs. And you, Mr. Barr, are so deep in the swamp, you can't see beyond your fellow reptiles. And you are not the exceptional leader needed.
This is the only man that our enemies feared. Donald Trump is the only man that our enemies feared.
Yeah, so just some really normal stuff. Just a well-adjusted 70-something-year-old who is going to be serving as the top prosecutor in Washington, D.C. Somebody who doesn't mind taking opposition research from somebody like Russia or China or even the devil, you guys. Somebody who thinks we need to cleanse the FBI, in her words. I mean, just a really normal person, somebody who's very serious and should be taken seriously in this type of role. But I mean, what should we expect from Donald Trump? Jeanine Pirro is now the 23rd Fox News personality that is now serving in his administration in some capacity. Donald Trump is plucking all of his talent right off of Fox News. I mean, we are truly living in the dumbest timeline ever. And for those of you that need a reminder, the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C., they kind of serve a dual role. Not only are they the top prosecutor for federal serious crimes, but they also are the top prosecutor for serious crimes right there in Washington, D.C. So they have their jurisdiction is over Congress and things like that. So, you know, it's a very serious role for a very unserious person that Donald Trump has just selected. And I want to go ahead and take a look at this next clip because Jeanine Pirro was recently talking about the Fifth Amendment. And you would expect somebody who is going to be serving as the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C., you would imagine that they would have a pretty good handle on what our Constitution says and what it actually means. But listen to the way she talks about the Fifth Amendment here.
Pull out. I carry this in my purse all the time. I don't know why. I think someday I'll be arrested or something. I'll take it out. Fifth Amendment is about a grand jury. It's about double jeopardy. It's about a person not being compelled to be a witness against himself. And you cannot be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. It says nothing about illegal. So cut the crap, Kristen Welker. You're a good person, but you're wrong on this.
Now, we've been over this time and time and time again. Nowhere in our Constitution does due process get limited to citizens of the United States. Jeanine Pirro should know that. And in fact, I want to go ahead and read the Fifth Amendment because Jeanine Pirro left out the most important part of the entire thing. She rightly pointed out that this is about double jeopardy, life, liberty, and property, due process, yada, yada, yada. But she missed the very first part of the sentence. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So as you can see here, Jeanine Pirro just left out the most important part. The Fifth Amendment clearly says all persons are entitled to due process. It's not all citizens who are entitled to due process. It is every single person in the United States who is under the jurisdiction of the United States government. And that includes, Jeanine Pirro, undocumented immigrants. Somebody who's going to be serving as the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., they should know this, right? How is it possible that these are the types of people who are now serving in our government? And I think I heard Bill Maher put it best. We've all heard of state-run TV, but now we've got the TV-run state. I thought that was pretty good. I'm going to have to give it to Bill Maher on that one. Here's Jeanine Pirro talking about how the Supreme Court didn't say that Abrego Garcia needed due process.
Shouldn't have been deported because of the withholding order, okay? Because he's MS-13 and they'll kill him with the other gang. So let's be clear about this. The Supreme Court never said in a Abrego Garcia case that due process is required for illegals. Can they get an immigration hearing? Probably, but that doesn't mean they go to court, and we can't possibly do it. 20 million, we can't even get through trials in this country, and speedy trial is a reason a lot of defendants get out of jail, because we can't even give the citizens trials.
So did you hear what she said there? Oh, well, maybe they can get an immigration hearing, but there's no way in hell that we can give all of these people trials. There's just too many of them. We can't give due process to all of these people. What does she think an immigration hearing is? Isn't that a form of due process, Jeanine Pirro? Are you really that dumb? And when we are talking about giving due process to people like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, we're not necessarily saying that he needs to go through a jury trial. We're not saying that we need to take months and months and months to go through an entire trial with all of these different jurors and all of these different witnesses and all of these different things. We are simply saying that because he had a withholding of removal, he should be brought before a judge. And if the government wants to challenge that withholding of removal, he needs to have a hearing so he can refute whatever the government brings against him. That's all we're saying. Jeanine Pirro should know better. And, you know, at one point, she probably did. She's somebody who used to be a prosecutor, I believe, in Westchester County in New York, I believe, but she has not practiced law in about 20 years now. She's been sullying her reputation for the past 20 years on Fox News. She has turned into an insane conspiracy theorist, and even her own producers on her own show said that she shouldn't even be on TV because she is that unhinged. So why did Donald Trump pick her? We all know the answer, right? Donald Trump is looking for two things in his selections. He's looking for somebody who's going to be 100% loyal to Donald Trump. He's also looking for somebody who is going to be willing to go after his enemies. And that is exactly what Jeanine Pirro has proved that she'd be willing to do.
You now have an FBI and a Department of Justice that is beholding, for whatever reason, to the Clintons.
The FBI needs a complete overhaul. There is a cleansing needed, a complete cleansing in our FBI and Department of Justice. Special counsel and former FBI Director Robert Mueller must be fired immediately. Cleansing. The Attorney General Rod Rosenstein must be fired immediately. Cleansing. The special counsel's office must be shut down. And Jim Comey. Cleansing. He needs to be the target of a federal criminal investigation. It needs to be cleansed of individuals who should not just be fired, but who need to be taken out in handcuffs. The FBI is the crime family. Take them out in cuffs. These people need to be taken out in cuffs. I've said it before, Sean, this is not our Justice Department. This is a bunch of arrogant, condescending people who think they know better than we do. And we're the fools that followed them down the path. This isn't about one defendant, one criminal, or one president. This is about our democracy It's about law and order. It's about the republic.
Shout out to Media Matters for putting together that very epic edit of Jeanine Pirro just salivating at the idea of going after people in the FBI. But this is what Donald Trump is looking for, right? He wants somebody who's going to be willing to go after all of his perceived enemies, anybody who may have tried to hold him accountable in the past, people like James Comey, people like Robert Mueller, people who have investigated Trump maybe as part of the January 6th proceedings. All of those people, they're fair game. And you need a crazy person who is willing to break with all norms, who's willing to go after these people even if there's not any evidence of a crime there, because this is what Donald Trump needs. He needs people who are going to be loyal to him. He needs people who are going to be crazy enough to do these sham investigations, maybe bring these sham charges against his perceived enemies, because this is what Donald Trump lives for. So, check. Jeanine Pirro is against the FBI. She's also very loyal to Donald Trump and has been, I think, ever since he came onto the scene back in 2015 or so. She's been getting a little crazier and crazier and crazier in her sycophancy.
And so it was that Donald Trump stepped into the spotlight, a patriot who believed in putting America's interests first, who believed that the decline of America was a choice that we could reject. The American dream is now being renewed. We need to kill them. We need to kill them.
Donald Trump is the only president with the guts to not only send the mother of all bombs into Afghanistan, to strike chemical weapon plants in Syria with surgical precision, but also go toe-to-toe with Kim Jong-un to the point where that wackadoo has become a laughing stock.
He came to us at a time when we needed his tough talk, his unvarnished perspective.
You want to criticize Donald Trump?
Just shut up and go away. Democrats have so normalized hatred and violence against the President of the United States that I fear it will result in some crazy lefty trying to assassinate him.
These people are insane. The two people who actually tried to assassinate Donald Trump, I'm pretty sure they were Republicans. They would consider themselves conservatives. Because as we all know, most of the political violence that goes on in this country is actually carried out by insane right-wingers. This has been borne out by the data time and time and time again. But in Jeanine Pirro's world, that is just not the case. Donald Trump can do no wrong. Donald Trump is the God. He is the God King. He is the end-all, be-all. He is the bee's knees. And this is exactly what Donald Trump is looking for in people who are going to serve in his cabinet. He is going to look for people who say how high when he tells them to jump. This is exactly the type of person that Donald Trump is looking for. This is the exact type of person that Ed Martin was. But he was just a little too crazy for those in the Senate who stood up and said that, yeah, we're not doing this. And hopefully we will have the same outcome here. Hopefully the people in the Senate will realize that Jeanine Pirro is an absolute lunatic. Hopefully they realize that she is not somebody who should be serving in this role as U.S. Attorney, because she just doesn't respect our system. And all of these clips that we just showed is just a complete example of that. She doesn't know what due process is. She wants to try to misrepresent what the words are in our Constitution. She says she wants to cleanse the FBI. She wants to go after Donald Trump's enemies, even though there's been no evidence of a crime being committed. She is just 100% loyal to Donald Trump, and that is it. If you tried to hold Donald Trump accountable, we're coming after you, because Donald Trump is God King. And therefore, anybody who goes after him, anybody who tries to hold him accountable, well, they must be punished. So that's where we are, guys. Jeanine Pirro, selected to be the interim U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C. We'll just cross our fingers and hope that the Senate just does not go along with somebody as crazy and as unhinged as somebody like Jeanine Pirro. So cross them fingers. We'll keep an eye on it. But until then, I will leave it there. So if you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem where Donald Trump likes to pluck all these insane people out of. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. It is free. And if you guys want to see how Donald Trump is now arresting Democratic mayors in Newark, New Jersey, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.